Welcome back. My name's Ashley Molson, and I'm a New Jersey real estate attorney helping you navigate the complexities of the New Jersey real estate transaction process. Let's hop to it. In today's video, we're going to discuss one of the most difficult things for sellers to wrap their heads around, and that's the concept of selling your property as is. So, when you put your property either on the market or you say to a buyer when you're negotiating the terms that you're selling the property as is, your impression when you're saying that is, I'm not making any repairs, I'm not offering any credits, and you're not going to ask me to do either of those things because you're taking the property as is. That's your impression when you are a seller. But unfortunately, the legal definition of as is does not match that expectation. And it is so frustrating for sellers because all along you're like, I've been communicating that I am not doing anything and you're not going to ask me for anything. That's my expectation. But buyer has their inspection, and lo and behold, even though the property's as is, they send you a whole list of inspection requests. Why are buyers still asking for things even though you're selling it as is? So unfortunately, what's happening is the buyers are being told by their attorney that even though the property is as is, during the contract phase, they likely negotiated for themselves some rights to have inspections, to make requests, even though they know you're unlikely to make repairs or offer credits, and then cancel the contract if they're not happy with how you respond. And a lot of times, the seller's attorney, when they're representing you, they're going to carve out this process so that the buyers can't just have their inspection and walk away. They want to force some sort of negotiation. And you may be asking, well, why would they walk away if it's as is and I'm not doing anything and they shouldn't be asking me for anything? And the reason is 99.9% of the time, you're not going to be able to find a buyer who's willing to completely waive their inspections. Now, when you have a really hot property in a really hot town and you have a lot of offers, some buyers may make their offers more attractive by completely waiving the home inspection contingency, but that is not the same as selling the property as is. So it's important to just keep in mind that it's very unlikely that you're going to find a buyer who's willing to completely waive their home inspection. So let's dive into this even more deeply. So the reason behind why a buyer is going to try and create some sort of inspection rights for themselves, buyers do not want to be forced into buying a property without knowing what they're getting into. And their attorney is going to want to add in some protections so that they can have an inspection and they can cancel the contract if they're not happy with the results and if you're unwilling to make any repairs that come up. And that issue needs to be something that is a valid issue. It can't just be that they don't like the color of the paint, but there needs to be some ability for the buyer to walk away if something major comes up. Now, on the seller side, this isn't ideal. It's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a buyer who's willing to completely waive their home inspection contingency. But it's just very uncommon to find someone who's willing to do that. They may even offer to do that, and then their attorney comes into the picture and they add in inspection rights. We see that a lot. And a seller is going to feel bait and switched when that happens. So for a home seller, what we try to do when you're faced with this pressure is we try to make sure that we're limiting the scope of what the buyer can ask for and then cancel because of. So let's just, pretend that we're not finding anyone who's willing to waive their inspections, which again, like I said, is very rare. We're going to try and say, okay, well, we understand you're going to have some inspections, but you can only cancel if a structural issue comes up or if mold is found. That's it. And you can always save the deal by saying, yes, we'll repair XYZ, but you are trying to avoid that, right? So we respect the fact that we're likely going to be finding buyers who are going to make requests, and we accept that reality. And then we see where can we place some pretty hard and strict limitations on those things. So the lesson here is if you really want to sell a house as is, what you should be looking for is a buyer who says, I am waiving my rights to a home inspection contingency. And everything around inspections goes back to that language. Like, I may have an inspection, but I don't have a contingency, right? The as is language is gray and soft and needs to be reconstructed by the attorneys and by your attorney specifically to help give you the boundaries that you're looking for and that you're willing to accept and proceed with. So I hope this video was helpful and gave you a little bit more insight on what as is means, how it plays out, and what the issue is with as is. It can be very confusing and be very uncomfortable if you are proceeding along thinking that as is means I'm not making repairs and I'm not giving any credits and my buyer's just going to proceed forward as is and they aren't going to be able to cancel and they're not going to ask me for anything. It can be really difficult to get to the inspection and receive a big inspection request letter when you thought all along you were selling as is. So now you know that as is doesn't mean that you're protecting yourself from those things. So keep that in mind and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. As a reminder, no attorney-client privilege was created here. I am not retained by you because you listened to this, so I am not your attorney. Make sure to go over these things with whatever attorney that you hire. And if you'd like to schedule an appointment with us, my calendar link is in the YouTube channel that you saw this video on. So thank you, and I'll be back with another one soon.